WrestleMania Night 1. Just realised I don't have headphones on like this. Anyway, yes, WrestleMania Night 1. A genuine surprise in terms of how much I actually enjoyed this. Awesome. Awesome. Also got a load of messages in the chat before I start. But anyway, before I get into stuff, hello, my name is Matt Mayer, aka M, and we are here for Wrestling Headlines WrestleMania 38 Night 1 review. It's a lot of words to get through off the bat. My word, it's one of those times where I'm just like, where do I even start with this? Where do we start? To start with the thumbnail. Start with the thumbnail of a genuinely entertaining night. Like, thumbs up. Really enjoyed this. I had my doubts. I was worried a bit when it started. When it started, I had my fears. It was like those first two matches. I was like, oh no. Oh, this feels like a SmackDown in front of a big crowd. Oh no. And then the third match happened, and after that, I really enjoyed the show. From there on in, which is awesome to say. Like, it's 5:10 in the morning, and I feel perfectly fine to do the show. Which is like, in terms of like in the best way possible. What do I even talk about first? Because there's so many great things to talk about. Which is like, I've done these pay-per-view shows with Aftershocks for a little while, and sometimes you get to this point. It's like, which one do I have to talk about first? But yeah, this was a genuinely entertaining night. Start with the main event. Start with Stone Cold Steve Austin. With his, a nice little surprise. This, because it was kind of rumored, like before, in terms of there being a match, this turning into a match. Spoilers. It turns into a match. And thank you, Howard, in the chat. Bless you, Imp. But yeah, and also. Ed, I have seen your before the stream message. For some reason it got retracted, but I'm trying to remember it whilst getting through this bit. Also, but still, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens. There was a rumor that Steve Austin might have a match, and then it got announced for like a KO show. Then it was a really weird build where Kevin Owens is getting hyped for a KO show. It's one of those shows where it kind of fixed a lot of the issues I had with the build. Like, they hit home on the night, or at least addressed issues, and I feel like this is one of them. Well, why would Kevin Owens care about any of this crap? In terms of, he'd want to fight him, right? It turns out, it's an elaborate ploy to get Steve Austin out there and challenge him to a fight there and then, once the adrenaline's pumping and running. And yeah, I loved it. But yeah, so there was rumours, but I just assumed this would be a nice thing for the home crowd, for the Texans in the audience. You get Stone Cold Steve Austin out there, you get him doing his jazz, and he's pumping up, and he drinks the beer, goes to the corner, does his stuff. I was a bit surprised they sat down to talk. I was like, I generally thought we'd get very little talk, and if there was talk, he wouldn't particularly be sat down, as in like get to it type of stuff. But no, I was completely wrong. Like, not even close. They sat down and had an actual chat. And that's what helped it escalate into the match, because you get across Kevin Owens' ploy. And yeah, it was a genuine surprise. Like, I generally thought it'd just be KO show, end with a stunner, everything all happy. Nah. No, not at all. It was all building to a surprise punchy kick fight, which is lovely. The Texas crowd loved every single minute of it. And for WrestleMania, I quite often, I don't know, I feel like I've got this feeling where I can just judge it more on the crowd reaction rather than my own reaction to a lot of stuff. And if the crowd are really into it, that's like, cool. This worked perfectly. Really, it worked. What doesn't help is WWE mixing in fake crowd reactions. It's like, that really doesn't help. And honestly, for the first three matches, it was pretty bad. First three matches. I feel like halfway through Logan Paul, the Logan Paul match with Miz against Mysterio's, halfway through that match, Logan Paul started to get a really good reaction from the crowd. And I spotted very little crowd mixing after that. Like, the only times I was spotting it was like when they show the floating graphic of the upcoming match as it goes through the crowd, and you can see the screens in the audience. Like, nobody can see that graphic, but the graphic appears and there's a cheer. It's like, oh, that match is coming up, way! It's like that. I still think it's crap, but I'm fine with it. I'm more fine with it with something like that, where it's the little graphic showing the thing. But anyway, that's a tangent. It's a tangent for later. It doesn't have any critiques. So this became a no holds barred match between Kevin Owens and Steve Austin, where they just brawled all over AT&T Stadium, and Owens and Austin teeing off at WrestleMania. The man taking a bump off the ring post. The man taking that bump was one more bump than I was expecting. Then Owens delivered a suplex whilst brawling through the crowd, like onto the concrete. He's like, I'm sorry. You're suplexing Steve Austin whilst in the crowd. Yeah, a full old punchy brawl kick all over the place. A second suplex when they got to the stage. A third as well. Like, it's not such a pleasant surprise to be watching Austin deliver and take actual moves past punch kick. And yeah, all building to Austin hitting the stunner and winning. And a nice little twist was KO hitting the stunner and getting a near fall himself. You just felt the energy zapped from the crowd at that point. Because one thing I noticed is whilst they were talking, because quite often when there's what chants normally, there's what chants from a section of the audience, there's another section's kind of mumbling, either not paying full attention to what the people in the ring are saying, or just kind of like they're not joining the chant, they're talking amongst themselves. This was a loud what followed by silence. And as in, they're doing the what chant, but they are engaged, and it felt almost booming hearing it just in unison, like what, and then there's just silence, like what. And then he will speak. I was like, oh my, it was, yeah. Honestly, it was a really, really awesome kind of atmosphere that got across. So I guess kudos to the sound department there. I was about to say about to rib on you, but then I thought, no, the sound department and the production mixing in the other stuff are not the same people. So let's not go over them. But still, yeah, building up to Kevin Owens hitting that stunner one way round. Steve Austin hit the stunner on Kevin Owens, where Owens got the steel chair. That backfired into his face, and Austin with the stunner for the win. Beer party to send the crowd out happy and just drunk in his presence, given that he was already drinking during the match, catching beer cans and stuff already. And my God, just the huge pop from the fans. They seem to really, really be into every single minute of this. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, it was a perfectly fine way to send them home, especially as there is a night two. Like, this is different to last year, where last year they essentially put on two shows. The only link in between was the women's tag match, which fine, but this was more of a please join us tomorrow. This is not like a main event match type of thing. This is a nice segment to end it on. I mean, doesn't mean you have to do that every year, but it's just nice to do something different. I'm fine with it. We're gonna get a big main event match tomorrow night. Like, it's a bit weird to end a wrestling show not on a match, but they twisted it into a match. It's fine. Realising all my gripes were kind of like addressed in a positive way, so I was going into this going, it's super weird. It's been main eventing WrestleMania with the torturing segment, but the crowd will love it. Yeah, fine. And then the crowd got really into it, and then it escalated into a match with a punch kicking all over the place. And the crowd absolutely loved it. Yeah, well done. Two Texas police dragging Owens away out of the arena. Why? Because yay Texas, that's why. I don't know why. Yeah, Kevin Owens dragged away by two policemen. And it's like, take him away. It's like, I don't know what he's done. Incorrect, but cool. Yeah, get the heel taken away. Why not? And Byron Saxton as well, getting into the ring and taking a huge stunner as well. Whilst Austin drinking more and more beers. I can't remember how many he had during the match. Like 3 or 4 times he stops to then catch beers and then move on to the next thing. And then afterwards, it's obviously the beer party afterwards. You get in the commentator to be like, yeah, I'll drink with you. Then stunner them as well. But like, yeah. A genuinely great feel-good moment just to end the show on. And the crowd ate up every single thing of it. So yeah, it's not your like saving your best match of the night to really send the crowd home happy with the wrestling things. Like no, this was like, this is sports entertainment. And it was fine. Yeah, it was fine. Yeah, we got some. What really helps with this is on the show itself, we got some really good wrestling. There were some matches that I absolutely loved, and that really kind of helps. Like I don't feel like I've watched the show and not got anything from it. I felt like I was served a decent plate of wrestling, and this was like an add-on on the end. And it's weird because I know what helps as well is I know how I'll treat these WrestleManias in the future in terms of viewing, because I've already got a 2-night WrestleMania, and I know that I can, in my viewing, I kind of treat them as one show. So that does help. So in terms of like what is WrestleMania like overall in the future, for my future viewings, do I treat them as two completely separate shows? No, I don't. Like, it's one really long show when I rewatch them, which I would slowly chip away through. Because that's what turns out that's what I was doing with last year's one when I was kind of rewatching it. I kind of chipped away at it as if it was one long thing. And that really, I feel like this is like when I do that at this time next year, I feel like this will be like a nice little break from like three absolutely fantastic segments, 3 or 4 fantastic segments in a row for me that felt WrestleMania like. Then you got this like nice little thing in the middle with the crowd going absolutely crazy for it, and then I'll tune back in for whatever night 2 opening match is going to be. Yeah, it's not going to be New Day. Oh dear. Actually, before I get into individual kind of topics or go through the like card in order or any critiques or anything, I'll just go through the chat. New Ed with the New Day. Yes, New Day obviously got cut from the show. They were meant to be one of the tag matches just in the middle of the card, and when the card started flowing and it got into an awesome kind of flow towards the end, and when it was Cody versus Seth, spoilers, Cody Rhodes turns up. When that was on, and then it went to Rousey Flair, when it was in that massive gap of like Hall of Fame stuff, doing loads of promo packages, I was like, you know what, I really don't want the New Day versus Budge and Friends. I really don't want. So is it Butch? That's it. Not but Budge was the joke name for Adam Cole when he might become a manager. They were so spot on with that bit. That's incredible. But so with that whole thing, I really didn't want the tag match to be on the show. Like, momentum flow wise, I was just like, I want the Flair Rousey match now. And then the Flair Rousey match came on. I was like, oh yeah, cool. I was like, but it's not against it's not a non-WWE idea just to have the tag matches. Like they like to have ebbs and flows quite often. This show was kind of rare in that case where it didn't do that. It gradually built in a really strong way. So I think match of the night was still match number 4, but still that like the actual like show flow of momentum was kind of building towards the end, and that was done really well. And I was really fearing that they could put they sometimes put ebbs in with their flows, and maybe I should be fearing a tag match. Nothing. It was like 4:30 a.m. and I'm like, oh, please don't bring out a tag match now and then go into a lengthy talk show segment. Like, please don't. And then they started doing the hype stuff in the main event angle. I was like, oh, yeah, great, yeah. So in terms of like how the show flowed, unfortunately, WWE did that thing where they hyped up a match, and it just so happens it's one of those matches where there's quite a lot of real emotion attached to it. It doesn't mean like the on-screen angle has been done magnificently well. It just means like because of what happened to Big E, there's a bit of emotion tied to it. But in terms of like the flow of the show, it didn't. The show didn't need it. The show was better for having that one match cut as well, because it flowed perfectly. Like even though it was on for like 4 hours and I wasn't done with it. Like I was obviously zoning out a bit just because I'd been watching Austin drink beer for so long in that one segment. Like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm now just getting everything set up for my show. Like, I'm sorry, Steve. I know you're having a great time out of the crowd drinking beers, but we have been watching this for like 5 minutes now. I've got to get stuff set up. So it was just on in the background whilst I was getting all my lights turned on and everything. But it's still a solid ending to the show. So anyway, the show overall, I've kind of dabbled. I was in my little tangent and leaving the main event. The show overall was incredibly solid from match number 3. The first 2 matches, I was genuinely worried. Not apart like the injury kind of didn't help, but there were little tidbits and things where I was just like, this is not a strong opening to the show. If this was my GM mode and the new WWE 2K, they would tell you on there, poor opening. It's kind of what they'd say. And I'd match number 2, still not great either. You're not getting it's not a. I mean, on WWE 2K they've ran the rivalry, so it will get an amazing rating. It doesn't matter who's in it on 2K. It doesn't matter who's in there. I mean, it matters a bit, but still, you're going to get like a 4.5 star thing between like Mace and Drew Gulak, if you've ran it. But still, the flow of the show I thought was good after number 3, which means like you leave. Quite often people will say, "Well, it's how you leave them." So yeah, they're leaving me from like match 3 till the end was a blast, and match number 4 was match of the night. So it's one of the ways how you leave them. They did not give a good first impression, and obviously I'm not going to forget that. When you go back and watch these shows, because quite often with WrestleManias I like to think, "Oh, I'm going to enjoy them in the future," and with these ones, I'm going to like maybe fast forward the first 2 matches or skip past them because I just didn't enjoy them, unfortunately. It's a bit of a shame, really. But yeah, in terms of like, I guess like feeling overall, there were obviously your WWE isms, sometimes just your insane camera cuts, which just take you out of the match. It's still a thing that still happens. They definitely at times. I felt like I really felt it in Austin Owens. Maybe it's just because I was more tired. But yeah, when there's a lot of punch kick happening, they cut between so fast. They're trying to create that feeling of, oh, look at this action. So you cut between really, really quickly to make it feel like this is quick action happening so incredibly fast. But that's not quite right because the action that we're being told is like that. We can see it's not really that frantic. So that because the action, the action that's happening isn't frantic. So when the camera angles start being frantic, it's just no. The two need to match. It works when it's like a multi-man match, and say Montez Ford does a dive over the top rope and someone else does a dive over another rope. If you quick cut between those multiple things, and it's like pow 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 pow, that frantic kind of cutting, and maybe someone else is brawling to the side, like that is fine. That's absolutely fine. That's exactly what this technique they're using is meant to be for. That's fine. When it's Owens and Austin punching round ringside, you don't have to cut that quickly. Oh dear. Yeah, you don't have to. It's jarring. It's way too much. You get taken out of it because you struggle to focus. When it's 2 people not walking particularly quickly, just laying hands on each other, don't have to squat and cut for every single punch. It's not a thing. Nothing bad. I think I'm thinking of. I think the guy just squatted with the cameraman just squatted with every single punch. The squat and zoom. The crazy footage that went round of the Seth Rollins doing like 10 chair shots in a row. For every single chair shot, the cameraman's going like, yeah, same thing here. I get what you're trying to do, but it's just not. No. But yeah, little things like that. The AR still looks crap. And I don't mind the kind of show where it's the show graphic stuff. Like for SummerSlam, they started integrating some of the what's coming up next, like into the staging. I thought they didn't do that here. It was all the floaty stuff as normal. And it's like, yeah, I don't mind that stuff. But it's the match graphic. When it's the people, tonight was the first night I genuinely realised that when the AR graphic was coming up, I was trying to look around it, and for me that tells you something. That it's not adding anything; it's obscuring, and for me that's when I realise in analysis when I realise it's detrimental. It's like when I'm watching WrestleMania, and the AR graphic comes up, instead of going, "Oh, AR graphic related to person," my instinct is to try and look around it because I'm trying to look at the WrestleMania that's happening. I'm trying to look at the amazing staging with the pretty lights and everything. But instead, I'm trying to look round the thing, and I'm actively moving my head to try and get the right angle so I can see past this. See round Becky's face, so I can actually see the staging. And yeah, for me, that's when it really hit home. It's like, yeah, this AR stuff, it's an idea. As far as I know, WWE are really doing it because the NFL does it, and because WWE wants to feel legit. Therefore, they feel they should do the thing that the NFL is also doing. And the one that I've seen is the Jaguars, where it's the Jaguar jumping around the ground, and I was like, yeah, look half decent. I mean, totally unnecessary. It's almost a flex of money. I don't understand what the necessity of this is at all. But cool, we're like, go look at us, we've spent all this money on this AR Jaguar that's jumping about the ground. Yeah. As a British person, I was like, I don't get it. Such a waste of money. You're using that money. You could be using that money so much wiser. But you're just blowing it on that. Like, cool, yeah, whatever. But because that means that the big sports league in America is doing that, I guess do they feel obliged to feel legit that they also should do that? That's the only, unless if they signed a contract with an AR company, they have to use the stuff. I don't know. Anyway, for me, it got to that point. That's when it hit me. I'm actively trying to look around the AR because it feels like it is obscuring the shot. I'm trying to see the staging and I can't see it because it's being obscured by this AR. And this is the first time why that language kind of fit into my head. It's like, well, no, yeah. In terms of does it look good or not, my instinct is that my view's being obscured. And for me, that immediately tells me everything. I don't need to dive any deeper than that. That tells me it doesn't work. And however nice it looks or not, it doesn't matter past that point. Because point number one hasn't been addressed. Like, no, the nice shot that you set up of the amazing stage, my instinct that is being obscured and I'm trying to see it, but I can't see it because of giant CGI Becky Lynch. So, yeah. Whatever. And was there anything else? I think that might have been it. Maybe the sound. I talked about the sound a little bit earlier. The first 3 matches, maybe when the crowd was kind of like waking up a bit. As I said, it was when Logan Paul did the amazing Eddie Guerrero heel heat. Fantastic. When we get to that match, oh my god. But also the kind of sound way the sound was done for those first 2.5 matches. It was integrating crowd noise pretty badly. And like you could tell because the crowd weren't massively into the first 2 matches. Drew McIntyre kind of got them into it a bit towards the end, especially towards the end flow of his Corbin match. That was all right, but over the first half of his match, they weren't into it really making much noise in particular. And you can tell because whenever there was like a punch kick or something, then you felt this crowd noise kind of come out of nowhere, and then you feel like. The way I describe it is, if you picture the sound as a line, which is quite useful, whenever the crowd would be like, hey, you'd feel like a plum as it's mixed into the actual crowd noise after the audio stopped playing, so that you don't hear like the clipping of the sound ending or whatever, you just turn it down. And WWE, I feel like tonight was one of the better nights. The big thing, they've had some atrocities over the weeks. But yeah, they were using fake crowd noise at WrestleMania, and I'm like, really? Like at WrestleMania? Because for me, the big thing is that meant that the atmosphere of the large stadium, which sounds different anyway, was completely gone for the opening of the show. You got no sense of scale just because it's the sound recording of a completely different venue, which is much smaller than this one, and it was that crowd noise being played for reactions and cheers. And it's like the crowd reaction you're playing isn't from a stadium like this. So I have no sense of audio scale, and it massively takes away from what I'm watching. For me, it's overproduction gone crazy. Not gone crazy, but this is the kind of drawbacks of overproduction to a point where it does actively hinder the product. But what happened was when the crowd got loud enough, they stopped doing it. So it's at that point where I feel like they're almost scared to put on a show where the crowd isn't making noise, or at least audibly you're not hearing noise. It's like, yeah, but I can see they're not making noise. It's the other thing when you watch Monday Night Raw and you hear these like, oh, these cheers and these big boos, and then you see the crowd just doing whatever that noise isn't. It's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. So for me, that's a disappointing down that they did use fake crowd noise at WrestleMania. Outside, they use it for the AR graphics when they were showing the upcoming matches, like the cheer thing. As I said, you could see the screens on some of the shots where they're doing the upcoming matches, so you knew that the next match wasn't being presented. So how could they possibly make a cheer for the next upcoming match when nobody could see what the next upcoming match was? Like, that's another thing. You can't do that. But it was still after that point. That was the only time it was used. After Logan Paul got his big heat, the crowd were they were fantastic. They were a good crowd all night. It's just those first 2 matches weren't anything to get them to make noise. And then you got to Logan Paul's amazing heat, and the crowd were alive from that point. Obviously, the matches that followed helped, but they made crazy noise on the night. So I'm not fighting the crowd at all. It's just why are using fake crowd noise at WrestleMania, because when you do that, I lose all sense of scale of the venue. It all goes. Yeah, and for me, that's a massive down on current WWE. It's not for me in terms of the overproduction. It's not just the shots. It's not just the quick cutting and stuff. It's not just the the focus and pacing of the shows is crazy. It's almost broken. Like they can't concentrate on one thing. You've set up something before an ad break. You come back. There's something else happening. Whilst that thing that had already started before the ad break just isn't addressed, and then suddenly you're back to that other thing. Like the shows are all over the place. But for me, a big one is the crowd noise. As soon as they started piping in or mixing in fake the crowd noises, I'm just like the audio is difficult to listen to for me. I just can't do it. I mean, obviously I can do it, but I listen to it like, but this is crap. Like it's not mixed well. I don't like it. Just put on a product that makes the crowd make noise and don't be shy of like a bit of quiet. Like it's fine. Anyway, so. Does the show after all? Oh yes, Howard's one in the chat saying, "Was tonight fun or just another American nightmare?" I mean, the start of the show was a bit America, with the country singers doing the national anthem, not particularly on key. Then the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders come out dancing to AC/DC. It's like, oh, I might. Oh, please, Vince, could you turn the America down a bit? America. America. Oh, it was strong at the start. It was very America. Mark Wahlberg, he's the one who did the video package to start the show. He's no Terry Crews, but he said stupendous, and the media was like, I hope to God nobody in their drinking games is included whenever they say stupendous, because we've not even made it to Michael Cole. Mark Wahlberg's already said it. So, oh, I fear for ye. I fear for ye. Also, before we got into the first match, was when Michael Cole officially called this show WrestleMania Saturday. So it's not WrestleMania Night 1, as I'm assuming pretty much every corner of the wrestling media is going to be calling it. But yeah, it's WrestleMania Saturday. They called it that throughout the entire show, multiple times. And immediately I'm just like, it doesn't sound as cool. WrestleMania Saturday. I don't know, it feels a bit more corny compared to WrestleMania Night 1. I don't know, it's... Obviously, the way I said them there doesn't help, but WrestleMania Saturday just... I don't know, there's a certain flow to it that's not quite right. I don't know, closer to like a branding thing that doesn't feel human saying it correct. Really? Yeah. Anyway, let's go through the matches in order. Maybe we should talk about the most interesting one. What is this Matthew? So, to be fair, these first two matches I don't have a lot to say about. The matches afterwards, oh yes. So the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, the Usos versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. Right into Rick Boogs riffing to introduce tea lemonade sponsored Nakamura. The concept of which I find nationally insulting. You put lemonade in the tea. I am sorry, what is wrong with you, America? Jesus Christ, that sounds horrible. Why would you do that? Also, we don't drink cold tea, so that's number one. I'm assuming it's cold. If you're putting lemonade in it, I'm hoping to God you're not heating up the lemonade. But that also sounds horrible. Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Oh, I came very close to just repeating that until I got an answer. Why would you do that? Knackers starting the action off strong, squaring off with the kicks. Boogs with the showman's strength. Although whatever this match was planned to be got cut off after the big man's knee buckled when he was going to lift both Usos together, and he's completely torn his muscle, which absolutely sucks. Assumedly changed on the fly to showcase some Nakamura fire before then just getting extinguished and put down by the Usos. Kicking out of the super kick splash combo was a nice little workaround to kind of build that fire. But the 1D end of the day, their version of the 3D, thanks to a bad luck injury, WrestleMania's first match ends pretty flat before it got going, and it's not a good first sign for a match that I wasn't that excited about anyway. And then an unfortunate injury heal up soon, Rick Boogs, but it wasn't a match I was massively into whilst it was happening anyway. Then you've got the tea lemonade sponsored Nakamura and Boogs coming out, and I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is this is interesting to see that. Yeah, it's You have fizzy coffee. Fizzy coffee. Yuck. Why would you make coffee fizzy? That's crazy. But yeah, it was not a kind of awe-inspiring opening to the show, really, to be honest. Like, the obviously massive hindrance, a massive accident with the injury, so I can't really blame them that much. I liked the idea of that Shinsuke Nakamura kind of showing that fire to then just get extinguished, because this was the workaround finish. This wasn't what they were meant to be doing. Meant to be a tag match, but they were able to at least paint that afterwards as like Nakamura did his best, but with an unlucky injury, and these things happen in a sport with contact. So yeah. Next match, Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin. The video package reminding us how great Sad Corbin was. He was so good in that gimmick. And to be fair, for me, honestly, this gimmick is a great idea. The whole Happy Corbin thing, for me, is a great idea, but the execution is god awful. For me, just the idea of him hitting like that first time he came out, and he announcing that he hit it big in Las Vegas, and he came out with the new music and the Titantron. He's got his happy shirt on, and he's all spinning around the ring. He's just so happy. But as soon as they then started going into generic heel telling bad jokes stuff, I'm just like, this had so much potential. It's just fallen straight back in. It's just fallen flat back into a generic heels tell bad jokes for heat kind of idea. It's just like, that's a shame. It had so much potential, and it's just fallen back into the same kind of formula of stuff we've seen before. It's like, that's a real shame. Yeah, but also for Drew McIntyre, this feels like an absolutely massive step down. Like, commentary did in terms of trying to make this feel like a big deal. Commentary were making it very clear to us that Corbin has been undefeated since becoming happy in the summer. So okay, cool. That's a nice little thing to have in there for Drew to overcome. And Drew himself absolutely was bringing the fire. But it was really just the kind of match you'd expect to see on a B pay-per-view like Fastlane or Payback, or WWE Fastlane or Payback. Like, yeah, this didn't feel like a WrestleMania match. They did what they could to elevate the kind of match that this was. Like Drew getting his big Mania tope dive over the top rope. Andy became the first man to kick out of the End of Days, like the much protected End of Days. So there was a lot. There was stuff put in there to make it feel more special. And there's obviously the post-match stuff as well. You know, it didn't feel like a WrestleMania match, which absolutely sucks for Drew McIntyre, who had the WWE Championship opener last year. It's a bit of a shame. Madcap Moss set up to cost Corbin a couple of times during the match. I like that they continued to build that. But ultimately, it was Happy who was unable to put the Big Scott away, which for me is great fuel for baddiness right there. As in, Madcap Moss did step up during the match, and he did cost Corbin momentum, but Corbin was on top and should have put the match away, but Drew McIntyre kicks out the End of Days and stuff. But then Corbin can blame it on Madcap Moss. He could put all the blame on him. As the heel, why would it ever be Corbin's fault? Him going ballistic at McIntyre kicking out the End of Days. But the thing that will be remembered is the post-match, where Drew McIntyre gets his WrestleMania moment as he whips out his big sword and clefts the rope in twine with the crappy overproduction slashing sound effects, as he goes and chops the ropes. And he gives a for a swing at Madcap, but Madcap jumps off and just cuts two of the ropes in. For me, the match was solid enough, but I won't particularly remember it. I'll remember the sword bit though. I'll remember the sword. I won't remember a lot about this match. Again, it felt like a WWE Fastlane before Drew gets to his actual WrestleMania story. This did not feel like a WrestleMania story. It's like, shame. This point on, so those first two matches, for me, it was a very weak start to the show. It felt very, again, like a SmackDown Fastlane, like nothing special in particular. And it felt like, I was like, oh dear, this feels like a show. Somehow they put a card together that showcases how weak this roster feels. And not is, because it's not a weak roster. They're just booked that way. This same roster in more capable hands in terms of like booking continuity and building up these people to feel at least interesting. And yeah, it's not a crap roster. It's just not booked that strong at all. These first two matches felt very weak, but from here on out, it's absolutely solid. The critique for me moaning about WWE from this point, that's over for tonight. No, not anymore. I've got all my moaning out the way on purpose. I've done all of that stuff, moaning about the AR, moaning about the sound editing, about the overproduction stuff. No. That's all done now, because from this point on, I loved this show. I really enjoyed it. So, first off, the Mysterios versus The Miz and Logan Paul. He may be an absolute knob, but he's got something for this wrestling thing. Logan Paul, really impressed here. So, first off, the Mysterios. A lovely moment as Rey and Dominic pull off the double stage door jump. And Rey dressed in the Mexico flag. And Dom with Eddie Los Gringos inspired Frilly USA. So, yeah, I think that's really nice. Yeah, lovely. The opposite of nice is our big heel celebrity just wearing the most expensive Pokemon card out to the ring is such great heat. Like, that is so good. And you know what? The lad was solid. Like a wee fun WrestleMania tag match to let the wrestlers do their thing around him. But he was involved a lot more than I'd assume many were expecting. Obviously, the best on show came between Miz and Mysterio with their back and forth. But Logan Paul generally held his own. Really at home playing with those boos as well. He played the crowd and the cameras really well. He knew what he was doing. And, such a shame for me that they were, at this point in the show, still piping in the fake crowd noise. And they stopped it when Logan Paul did the Eddie's trio suplexes and frog splash to the amazing heat. When he did that, that was the point of the show where the fake crowd noise just was used a lot less. It was used a lot more kind of smartly, rather than for a lot of reactions. Because the crowd at that point, WWE must have deemed we're making enough noise. We don't need to pipe in stuff or whatever. But for me, it was a shame. For me, it's a shame they were piping that in earlier, because when he got the genuine reactions, I'm like, yeah, I can tell the difference. This is what the actual reaction feels like in this stadium. I felt like for the first time I was actually hearing what the boos from the audience sounded like, because I wasn't getting that sense. Because I guess that's one thing. If one note in terms of the WWE sound stuff is that if they're mixing it in, I know I'm not hearing that crowd, so I know if it's just Monday Night Raw normally, so I lose all kind of sense of what the arena's like. Because audibly, that's all wiped out. It's all gone. Like America's Got Talent, you got no sense of what that audience noise actually is or was, just because it's all just overly produced and edited in. It doesn't really mean anything. But Logan Paul was getting great reactions from the crowd in mimicking Eddie's trio suplexes and the frog splash. Incredible heat. Looking at the camera like a pro before going full heel. The boy's a knob, but he's also a natural playing off the crowd. Fantastic performance, and fully convinced me he and Miz should win. Whilst this match was happening, I was like, you know what? He's doing so well that I would have him win. Just make him the most hated man in that building. Oh, so good. And then that led to closing off with a huge earned pop. Miz hitting the skull-crushing finale on the most hated man in the building. Amazing stuff. I cannot applaud that performance enough. Logan Paul did really, really well. He left that arena as the most hated man. Congratulations. You nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And it was a lot of the little things, like I was saying, like just turning to and finding the camera and doing that as well. It's like, yeah, right, well done. Amazing stuff. Really well done. And no, Logan did not no-sell the 619. No, Eddie did not. Logan Paul was really, really good in his role. Yeah. And of course the crowd didn't need to see the Mysterios take him down. They just needed to see him taken down. And when the Miz did that, they popped huge. Really, really well done. Congratulations. Amazing segment. After that, Steph McMahon brings out Gabe Stevenson. The amount of hype they're giving him, no pressure, lad. Good God. The good news is we're a year later, and they've not done anything to kind of push him a bit. Because watching NXT TakeOver earlier, it was evident that with someone like Bron Breakker, he's being served a little bit too early. And you could tell, as in having him just cook for a little bit more. You don't need to like force him onto the TV that quickly. Like, it's perfectly fine just to let him simmer for a bit more, let him cook up. Because you can see the talent there, but you can sense it in the Ziggler match in the big main event. It's like, yeah, just let him cook for a bit more. That's what I do. Anyway, Raw Women's Championship, Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. My match of the night. I absolutely love this. From the first, as soon as the bell went, and there was no downtime in this match. It started fast. It started with the bar high, and then they built from there. They never dipped down below it. It's like, oh, incredible stuff. And the video package for me reminded me like how like the great build this could have been if this was the plan all along. Like WWE of hindsight booked this really well. What I mean by this is they had the SummerSlam moment, then they had the rematch, and then there's nothing. This drops off the face of the earth. Both people, in terms of their trajectories following these actions, it's not building to this at all after their rematch. There's nothing. Bianca's just existing. Becky's doing something else entirely. There is no character arc. There is nothing. Bianca's not reacting to the loss. Becky Lynch isn't reacting to specifically taking out Bianca. There is no arc. There's nothing. Then WrestleMania season hits. They're deciding on the matches. Suddenly, Bianca clicks back in again. And that's when they start kind of like hindsight booking, well, what have these two been doing since then? WWE, I've said this before, are often really, really good at hindsight booking. When I think that my favourite example is the Who Attacked Roman Reigns storyline, because that was shite. But they just ended up in a place, and when it was starting to fall together, they then started looking back on what they'd done and then made it fit into what they were trying to create, and they ended up doing in the end a pretty damn solid kind of angle to end it on, where they wrote a load of crap that didn't make any sense, but they then all looked at it and in hindsight put it together. And they're normally pretty good at doing that. They just repeat the problem. It's my only critique. They'll write nonsense, then they'll make it make sense, kind of fit it into a world. Maybe have to ignore certain things, but they make the overall story kind of work and make sense. They can go forward with it towards the pay-per-view. And the grand, well done. And then they'll do it all over again with a different thing. It's like you don't have to repeat the same problem. You fixed it. It's fine. Yeah, so this Bianca-Becky storyline with the SummerSlam thing, when that happened, there was no kind of arc. There's no arc happening for Bianca for over a huge period of the year after then. But WrestleMania season hits, the arc starts, and it has been a little while now where this has been building up for Bianca, and with her being officially named number one contender, that's when it really kicked in. And since then they've, as I call it, hindsight booked really well. And it was, like, by the time this match came about, it was the stronger women's championship story by quite some margin. And the promo package did a damn great job of getting that across. So by the time we hit WrestleMania, this is the women's match with the most hype. This is the one where the crowd actually care about, like, the challenger potentially dethroning the champion. There's just so much more going into it. And both women got big-time WrestleMania entrances to really sell it. Like, this felt like the main event. Becky's Marvel Studios video was great, and I love me a big marching band entrance. Give me John Cena at WrestleMania 24. Whenever I rewatch that show, that gets stuck in my head afterwards. I love the marching band entrances. They're few and far between, which is probably good. I'll probably get sick of them if they appear too much. But yeah, these entrances really helped hype up the crowd as they responded loudly for both women staring down after the bell. Like the crowd were really up for this by the time it started. And then, as I'm saying, they started at a damn high level of quality. Like, this match ruled. Like, hot off the gate, playing off the SummerSlam quick finisher. And Becky went for it, missed, Bianca countered, and then Becky actually hit it, but Bianca kicks out. It's like, oh, completely selling you into the fact they're just going to do it again. But no. And the pace was never dying as they built Becky's frustrations quick and then Bianca's having to then fight back in, like starting at a high level and escalating from there. Damn great stuff. The first match on the show to just command my attention. I felt like I was really struggling just to look away and write down notes because I was just transfixed on what was happening before me. I was like, yeah, I'm totally in on the flow of this story that they're telling. Like Becky's frustration growing into holding that control, to Bianca hitting big time moves galore to fight back. So happy they gave this time to flow perfectly into a damn impressive back and forth. Reselling us Becky's frustrations as she starts to fight dirty in despair. Like I was a bit like Rich Lasso put it out on Twitter. It was like as soon as we noticed this match had a fast pace, there was that worry. Have they only got like 10 minutes? Like, are they wrestling at this quick pace because they don't have the time? Like I've seen it before with WWE where they've gone fast and I'm like, oh my god, if they go this fast for like 15-20, this will be amazing. But no, they're going fast because they've only got a certain amount of time to get their crap in. But no, they've given this time. This was what I want from WWE. You start off with that fast pace and it just does not let up. Like incredible stuff in this match. And it got to that point towards the end where I was enjoying the match so much, I was cheering for Becky to kick out of Bianca's KOD so that it wouldn't end. And I was just like, that's bloody brilliant. Well done. But yeah, when it reaches that point, well, I was enjoying it so much I wasn't ready for it to end, even though we were at, 20 minutes in. They had a full flow of a match at that point, and the crowd were at their hottest peak they had been during the match for Bianca to hit a move and win. Like, momentum and flow-wise, this is when you do it. But I was enjoying it so much I didn't care. I was like, no, give me 5 more minutes. I'm enjoying it so much. I just wanted her to kick out to reach like that next level. I was like, this is like the first WWE match in a while where if Becky kicked out and then they went that next gear even further, yeah, you're hitting an all-time classic. However, this was not the main event. It's match number 4. You don't do that match number 4. You'll knacker them. Seeing what was to come next as well and how long was left. Yeah, maybe don't kick it up into two more gears. Because, yeah. When you hit a peak, don't then have to try and generate the next peak. Don't go too long. Don't indie wrestling this way. You had your peak and then you just went past it to get your stuff in. Anyway, this was match of the night. Really, really good stuff. It's one of those where I can't wait to rewatch it because watching it live, my immediate reaction was just, that's a all-time classic match. That was amazing. Like really well done. From the presentation, but the video package sold how well the character stuff had been done in the build up to this. Then the entrances really made it feel like a big time match. And the match itself, I love the flow of it. Really, really well done. I can't applaud it enough. Bloody brilliant. Speaking of bloody brilliant, here we go. Seth Rollins versus Vince McMahon's mystery opponent. Ooh, question marks. Who's it going to be? For me, this is the opposite of the Bianca versus Becky stuff. The build for this was shite. I was not into this at all. It's just, on a base level, the story is that Seth Rollins can't get on the WrestleMania card. And I'm like, in terms of a base understanding of me getting invested in this storyline, it's not going to happen because the immediate problem is I cannot invest in the idea that Seth Rollins won't be on WrestleMania. So the entire time they're playing off this story, and I thought Seth was doing great stuff in terms of him himself, the stuff he's doing on these shows, he's doing a great job with it. The way he's interacting with Kevin Owens, with AJ Styles, you've seen that desperation seep through, and he's reaching a breaking point. I liked the way he was doing it. I was enjoying that. What I didn't enjoy was the actual story beats, the story they were telling, because I couldn't buy into it at any level. I know he's going to win the. And then he goes to Vince McMahon and he pretty much just says that in the office, just saying you can't. You're Seth Rollins, of course. I'll be on WrestleMania, and now she's your opponent. I was like, well, yeah. That's been the reason why I can't get into this feud that much. Because I was like, well, it's WrestleMania. Of course you're gonna have Seth Rollins on the card. And then Vince just says that. What was this build? It was. But what they did do really well was, whilst they are doing all of this nonsense, what they're also doing is teasing Cody. And they're doing the thing. This is where, because obviously, I've seen quite a few people and heard quite a few people saying WWE they've never announced Cody Rhodes, so don't get angry if there's no Cody Rhodes. And I'm like, yes, they did. if you're doing teasers for the person live on TV, you better have them. And it is a tactic of promotion. You are telling the audience that this person, like, we are teasing them, therefore they are coming. And that's the thing AW did with CM Punk. They were telling you he was coming without just saying it in a blatant type of thing. Like, CM Punk will be on this show at this date. They were giving constant hints and teasers, and they're doing it now with Bret Hart. And the AW have conditioned their audience to know when we tease a wrestler, that is because we are doing the thing and you can expect it to happen. And WWE more over the years have quite often swerved the audience, which for me, I'm not a fan of that, because long term that just pisses the audience off, and surely you don't want to do that. You want to keep the audience. So for me, it was a bit of an issue. For me with the whole Cody Rhodes thing, WWE have been doing exactly what AW did for their CM Punk episode, what they're doing now with Bret Hart. It's the exact same thing. They didn't say Cody Rhodes would be at WrestleMania, but they did the on-air teasers. And if you don't have Cody Rhodes, you tell Corey Graves to cut that shit out, because he's just setting up your audience to be disappointed. And with WrestleMania, that is surely the last thing you want. But the teasers continued, and I'm like, oh cool, they've got Cody. That's great. That's nice. Obviously, then the Shane McMahon news came out, and that was a great curveball. It was so good. There's the news coming out of, like, by the way, guys, Shane McMahon's just flown in for WrestleMania, and apparently he's going to be there in some capacity. It's just like, this would be very WWE to get us all set up for Cody, and it's Shane McMahon. For all I know, that could have been the backup in case Cody didn't play out. I mean, for me, the fact that they started doing the teasers on air, and it wasn't just 1 week, it was across multiple weeks, especially commentary would just drop the odd thing when they're during Seth Rollins' angles. Just certain ways of phrasing things, which turns it into a reference about Cody. And for me, that is telling your audience that we are doing the thing. For me, at that point, you have advertised Cody, just like not in a blatant way. Well, I don't know if it's advertising. What, you've teased the thing. So if you teased the thing, you better well be doing it. It's the way I look at it, and I weirdly felt like I could trust this one because it was across multiple shows. When they first do it, it's like, this could just be a nod to the news that's about. But then they did it on a different week. It's like, okay, no, this is different. And it was Cody Rhodes. It wasn't bloody Shane McMahon. Really good stuff. And oh my god, first up, Seth's entrance fit was amazingly over the top. Glorious garb on that man. That was incredible. So fluffy, so over the top. And Cody Rhodes makes the jump. Goosebumps of a pop for this. For anyone just saying, Cody Rhodes won't be that big a deal, they only know him as, like, just the Stardust guy. They don't know, they won't pop for Cody. He's not that big a deal. Or he's an AEW guy, therefore he's not a big deal. Yeah, that's bollocks. This was made to feel like it's such a big deal. I was also so happy called on commentary from undesirable to undeniable within it, with a lot of the presentation of this Cody character being presented in a very natural way by commentary. I thought commentary did an amazing job during this match. Not often do I applaud WWE commentary, but I thought this match, they deserved it. Treated as a huge moment and return for Cody, painted as surreal for the American Nightmare's debut. So damn good. His full AEW presentation transitioned over to sell us on our first big jump back. Like, that was a major part of this. That feeling that this isn't Cody Rhodes returning to WWE. This is the Nightmare debuting. For me, that was done incredibly well, and I feel like that decision was so correct to really make it feel like there's been a big talent jump here, and this is a big deal. That happening, the big AEW star going to WWE. For me, that's the final piece of the competition puzzle finally being went into where it lives, to set in a truly exciting time. It's just that final puzzle piece is finally in. The match itself, solid too, bubbling nicely in the first half, and really heating up something tasty in the second. Them both teasing the pedigrees was brilliant. Because Seth Rollins does it because it's one of his former moves, and then Cody does it and he go, oh, that's interesting. Cody nailing the crossroads before pulling up to hit the bionic elbow to an incredible pop. And he then hit the crossroads one more time for the win. This match was an emotion that this WrestleMania desperately needed to elevate it. And like following a match of the year women's title match, like certainly didn't hurt because the crowd were in positive feeling. And then this match came on, and Cody does his big surprise debut. And that really elevated them. And for me, like a little touch from commentary, just to applaud them again. Like in this match, they were calling Cody's moves by their names. Like Cody he bounces off the top into a cutter. They call it the Cody cutter. They don't go, oh, what was that? They don't react. They don't go, whoa, wow, wow. They don't go Christopher Welcome, wow. They generally, like, they call it the name of the move. And Corey Graves was doing great commentary as well, which is the details of Cody. Just the phrasing, where if you've been watching AEW, you've heard all these ways of phrasing it, but to hear Corey say the same ways of saying the sentence in terms of describing the character, yeah, that for me that was a huge way. Like, it's all part of creating this feeling that this is a big talent jump, and presenting him in the same way, having commentary explain him in a certain way, which is very familiar. Just constantly reminding you as well that, oh, this is surreal. They never say why it's surreal. It's not going to say the name of the competition, but they say it. That's the feeling they go for. That isn't it surreal that this AEW star has just debuted on WrestleMania? He has jumped to WWE. How surreal is that? That is the story they've gone with this, and I'm so happy they did. I'm so happy they went with that story. Because again, for me, in terms of this new era of competition, this was the final piece that I wanted to see. Was a big AEW name going to WWE. I never would have thought it'd be Cody. Like, never in a million years. Someone so integral into All In and how an AEW being born, I would never have bet. I would have just assumed that it meant so much to him. He would have always stayed in AEW. But obviously, the way things turned out, like, no, yeah, he's jumped back to WWE, and it was an amazing debut. For me, it's just like, I like the Cody character when it's done right. Cough, cough. Certain Codyisms, cough, cough. But I feel like in WWE, the way that he's got his character working, it could do really well if treated right. It's just that asterisk. If they treat him like a star. And this WrestleMania screamed treating him like a star. Because I think I was saying maybe a few weeks ago when this news was kind of around, I was just like, well, yeah, in terms of how WWE treat Cody is also a big message to other AEW stars in the future who are thinking about jumping to WWE. Like, this is a message about how they might be treated. And Cody's like a big AEW star. So if he's treated well in WWE, some people in AEW feel like maybe they're not getting the shine that they'd like. Yeah, the jump is more likely. Yeah. It was an amazing moment. The atmosphere in the place was incredible. The pyro, the amount of pyro that man got. Hearing the theme that we've heard in New Japan, in, I guess, Impact, Ring of Honor, AEW, now the same theme playing in WWE. That was surreal. The fact that it's neck tattoo Cody. I popped when the AR graphic was the Cody tattoo, because I heard people going, someone was suggesting that, wonder what the AR graphic's going to be, and everybody in unison's like, it's going to be the tattoo, isn't it? And then it was the tattoo. And that was my reaction. It's like, it is the tattoo. Yes. The first time I've ever popped for the AR graphic where it's the tattoo. Yes. Doesn't mean I thought it was good, but it was just the fact that it was the tattoo. It's like, yes, of course it was. Yeah. Great. So, and it's the fact it's the American Nightmare returning. There's no smoke and mirrors. Yeah, really happy that this is the way this is going. And I can't wait to see what they do next. Like, how they treat him after this. Yeah, we'll see. Hall of Fame folk then got their shine. Undertaker with the big entrance to another amazing ovation following an incredible reaction last night. That was lovely. Then into the final thing to talk about before I can go to my weary bed. The SmackDown Women's Championship Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. Here we go. WWE finally getting the women's WrestleMania match they've wanted for 3 years. Becky Lynch had to just go and get over and just ruin everything. You know what? Yeah, this was grand. They were following 2 white hot segments and a Logan Paul that really delivered and woke the crowd up as well. So they've had 3 back-to-back segments that went over really well. Then they've got this one. With that level of investment just for the characters there isn't quite the same. But they're not at, like, this isn't Goldberg Brock. Like, don't get it twisted. They've not turned on these guys at all. But you can just feel it. Like, the build has not been good. And the investment just isn't quite there. They're not desperate for a title change, so that atmosphere is just not going to be the same. And yeah, for me, it was grand. There was, like, Ronda Rousey's obviously the bigger name and star going into this, but yeah, this was fine. Like, the 2 had a damn great match back at Survivor Series 2018. Like, so we've seen them be solid together, and it has been a while. So maybe I enjoyed this match because I don't really remember the 2018 one that strongly, other than me thinking, "Oh, this was great." But yeah, this was another match, like, bubbling really nicely to a strong flurry towards the end. The quick trade of submissions was lovely jubbly. Ronda countering absolutely everything. Is that feeling of a matter of time being created really well. Like, honestly, I didn't mind the finish either. It's one of those that seems to have split just because it's there's bollocks happening in the finish. It's one of those ones, and I know that really turns people the wrong way sometimes. For me, it depends how the rest of the match has gone. If the rest of the match has been kind of then it ends and it reaches that final night. It's like the referee's like, okay, time to go home, and then you hit that rhythm. Like, no, this kind of, it set up kind of where both characters were going when this situation happens. It was setting it up, and the flow of it was a lot more natural because of that. And like, yeah, didn't mind it. Flair just surviving and becoming desperate. Her overzealous charge at Rousey creating that slice of luck. Ronda reaching that momentous peak and having her beat, that was what was really building throughout the match, as Ronda was countering everything Charlotte threw at her, and then Charlotte was just escaping, was only just surviving. That overzealous charge where she went at Ronda, missed and caught the referee, that created a slice of luck. The ref was not there to see as Ronda's momentum, because when that happened as well, Ronda's momentum to her reaching the peak was in full stride, and they didn't kind of break that for a ref bump. They went straight into the Ronda going for the armbar, only for Lil Nate being down, creating an opening for the champion to steal the win. And obviously at that point where you've got ref bump bollocks happening, and then Charlotte steals the win off of that little distraction. It's like, yeah, he could have had a just flat out beat her in competition. But I guess part of it is keeping Rousey strong in that, is that the slice of luck swung in Charlotte's favour. And I don't know, for me, I felt like in the moment I wouldn't have minded Rousey kicking out, and then Charlotte maybe follows up with that. So, but it's kind of a bit pointless at that point. You've hit the momentum of the match. Like, it's perfectly fine for it to end here. It doesn't mean it doesn't hit any next stride, and that only sticks out because of the other women's match where they hit that next stride. To that point where I was perfectly fine for them to have the next one. Like, you've in terms of that point where they were earning their strides, they were earning that next bit. Whilst this match, I was like, nah, it's perfectly fine to end here. That's perfectly all right. And then seeing how long the show went afterwards, I was even more all right that it ended when it did. It's like, you know what? It's already quite a long show, and we're doing this all again tomorrow, so I'm fine that it ended here. That was my that's kind of my take on the match, really. I was like, congrats WWE, you finally got this match. Are you happy with it now? Like, it's fine. It for me, it only doesn't feel as like grand as I think WWE wanted it to. Was maybe just because the 2 matches before was so white hot atmosphere that the crowd were just a bit tired for this, so they weren't as white hot for this one, because they were for 2 matches in a row, and they were making a lot of noise for the Logan Paul match as well. So when it came to this one, they were maybe just a bit drained, and then they heated back up for the main event. So, and to be fair, for the closing kind of angles of this, they were getting into the flow of the match, and then of course ref bump happens, and then match finishes. So yeah, it wasn't a bad match. like I saw quite a few on my Twitter calling it absolute bollocks and the finish being awful, and I was just like, for me, you can do bollocks finishing if you earn it, and for me, the flow of the match was perfectly within rhythm of it happening. It was perfectly fine, but also I didn't feel like it earned an extra portion. I was not ready for the next thing. I was fine with it, but yeah, that's the end of the review. WrestleMania was solid from the third match onwards, but a very weak opening. Partly not their fault with the injury, but also the second. I wasn't excited for the matches anyway. When they were happening, I wasn't massively into what was going on. And then the second match with Drew McIntyre, Happy Corbin, didn't pull me in either. Even big floppy sword. Yeah, you scarily enough didn't use real sword, but you still with the floppy sword, it was still didn't massively grab my attention. But then the Logan Paul match definitely did, and Bianca Becky was match of the year. Good level stuff, incredible. The Cody debut was an incredible atmosphere, and the exact kind of making the wrestling industry feel exciting energy it's the final piece of the puzzle that hadn't happened, and now it's happened. I'm really happy, and then Charlotte Rousey was also really solid, and then he had a really big crowd pleaser towards the end in Austin having an actual match and taking genuine bumps to the surprise of everyone. For me, a surprisingly solid WrestleMania, given that when I was looking at the card, it felt really weak. But I guess part of that as well is I was expecting Bianca Belair, Bianca and Becky to open. Then but then I was like, when I was going through that, whilst this show card was playing out, I was like, actually, yeah, in my version, you've then got 2 tag matches, which I am not excited for in the slightest, and you've got Happy Corbin Drew. Like, the middle of this show just tanks. if you have that white hot opener with Becky Bianca, after that the middle is nothing, and until you get to like your last 3 matches, you'd have 3 matches that the crowd just slowly fall more and more out of the show with. Like, yeah, this was better. This format was so much better. So yeah. Right, yeah. So before I go, I feel my voice going. Do I think night 2 will be better? When I was looking at the cards before this show happened, my instinct was yes. That was my instinct, just looking at the 2 different types of cards. However, given how this card played out and how well Logan Paul did, because I don't think I had that match, the Logan Paul mismatch, I don't think I had that as one I was particularly excited for. But the way it happened, I was like, oh wait, no, this is a definite positive. For me, it's match 3, 4, 5, and 6 were all solid, and then 7 was a lovely surprise. And yeah, I thought this was a weaker card on paper. Then it really wasn't. And they dropped one of the matches, which for me really was a massive tick. Because again, those 3 matches I didn't really care about. One of them was cut. Suddenly it's only 2. And they're at the start of the show, so we get through them, and then you got solid for match number 3 afterwards. If to do something similar tomorrow, because on paper I thought tomorrow was more solid than tonight, and the tag, like for example the Raw Tag Team Championship match, I'm way more interested in that. And of course they've got RK Bro, which helps, but they've got Dynamic of the Street Profits, Alpha Academy been putting in really strong work since they suddenly got this position on the card. So like that should be a really fun match as well. For me, that's like a nice little comparison. There's less that I don't care about. Like the women's tag is maybe it, but there's 4 teams in that. That'll be hectic nonsense fun. Yeah, the crowd really like Rhea Ripley. I'm expecting her to get an amazing reaction. So there's stuff there to like. On paper, it feels stronger, and of course they've put everything into that main event. Every bit of energy, every bit of strong booking has all gone to that main event, where the current roster feels, in terms of the men's side especially, if you're not in the program with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar in some fashion, then it doesn't particularly feel like you matter. To the point where both the US and Intercontinental champions were in the Battle Royal. Like, for me, that's just a proof. The champions of the middle of your card, like the workhorse championships, aren't on the show. Which kind of just says a lot in terms of how much prestige they kind of hold for their mid-card overall, when the champions of that area of the card, they don't exist on WrestleMania, which is pretty big. But yeah, the set is set for a lot of fun. Set for like quite a solid main event. Expecting the main event to be great. As long as they don't go too long. I feel like Reigns Lesnar, the mistake they made at WrestleMania 30. Oh God, when was it? 34. It's 4 years ago now. The mistake they made there was going way too long, and not really playing off the crowd dynamic like they did in 2015. So if they play off the actual dynamics of everything here, like tonight they kind of did that. They played off the dynamics of the crowd reactions to things really well. If they do that with Reigns Lesnar, we could be in for a quick bish bash bosh 10 to 15 minute treat. Let's not go crazy. But Reigns' recent matches have been, part of them is how long they are. I don't know if I want that. I don't know. Like tonight, when I reached that point when I was looking at how the card was flowing, and I was like, we've still not had New Day versus the Sheamus and Friends. I don't want New Day, Sheamus and Friends right now. I want to start to get to close the show, and then those things happened. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. It doesn't flow and momentum of the show. It went exactly how I wanted it. That's cool. So yeah, we'll see. Anyway, that is the end of the review because I need to get to sleep because it is 6:20. I've got to do this all again tomorrow for WrestleMania Night 2. So with that, I say thank you for watching, liking, engaging in any form, any manner. Always appreciated, never taken for granted. You can follow me on Twitter at the Damn Implicat. That's damn as in damn. Also my Twitch stuff is there. But more importantly as well, the wrestling headlines, contact stuff. You can at Russell Headlines, that's Wrestle without an E, for all the Twitter stuff, and over at Facebook for Wrestling Headlines, and the site itself for all the latest wrestling news. I'll be back to cover WrestleMania Night 2. Hustle has the Can't Knock the Hustle immediate review up in written form as well. And is that everything I need to plug? I think it is. Again, 6:20. So if I'm forgetting something, I am sorry. So with that, I bid you adieu. What do you think of WrestleMania? Let me know in any of the different forms. And with that, bid you adieu. Adios.